Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in some really powerful academic research. And it could completely change how we think about, well, global development and social justice.
Yeah.
If you, like probably most people listening, assume that water access is just, turn on a tap, get clean water.
That basic assumption.
Yeah, prepare for that to be fundamentally challenged.
Well, that assumption that it's just about quantity and cleanliness, that's exactly what decades of international policy have sort of been built on.
Right.
These global monitoring programs, mainly led by the WHO and UNICEF Joint Monitoring Program, the JMP, they've historically focused just on measuring improved water sources.
So the source material we've got here, this paper, What is Water Equity? The Unfortunate Consequences of a Global Focus on Drinking Water. It argues this narrow focus. It's actually obscuring massive global inequality.
That's the core argument.
So our mission today is to understand why all these efforts focused on clean drinking water still don't really capture the reality of water deprivation. And, well, what does water equity actually mean?
And it involves shifting the focus, right, from just health outcomes.
Yeah, to livelihoods, social power, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And to start, you almost have to redefine water itself. Like, stop thinking of it just as H2O.
Okay.
Think of water more as a fluid economic and social commodity.
Right. Okay.
Fungible.
Yeah, fungible. You can use it for lots of things. It's storable. And crucially, it flows, across space and time.
And carries potential with it.
Huge potential, social and economic power.
Yeah.
Because water is so fundamental, for almost everything from survival to production.
Right.
Its availability, how it's allocated, that becomes a central issue of justice.
Okay, so let's start with that dominant definition, the one that drove global policy through the Millennium Development Goals.
The JMP Index. Yeah, the JMP Index. Measuring the proportion of people with access to improved water sources. So that usually means piped water, protected wells.
Protected springs, things like that. The goal seems simple enough. Safe, clean drinking water.
But that simplicity, that's the weakness.
That's exactly the inherent weakness. Look, these indicators were crucial starting points. Nobody denies that. But they tell such an incomplete story.
How so?
They fail to measure several really essential characteristics of water access for actual households. And this is where you see that gap, that huge gap between global policy and, well, daily life.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting, right? The JMP basically assumes if the source itself is physically improved, then the community's need is met.
Yeah, tick the box.
But our sources highlight 4 critical things that JMP pretty much ignores. What are they?
Okay, number 1, collection time. Then reliability, cost, and the social arrangements needed to actually get that water into the home.
Let's unpack the time burden one first. That sounds clinical, but it's deeply personal, isn't it?
Absolutely. So the proposed aspirational goal for 2030, coming out of JMP discussions, suggests a maximum round-trip collection time of 30 minutes.
Okay.
And that includes waiting in line queuing.
Wait, 30 minutes total, including queuing.
Yeah.
When you think about actual daily domestic work, that number feels almost, willfully blind.
It is highly burdensome. The source material really hammers this point. Think about it. Water collection falls overwhelmingly on women and children.
Right.
And they have to make multiple trips every single day.
Not just one trip.
No way. A typical household, say 4 to 7 people, they need something like 6 to 10 containers of water daily. Just for basics, hygiene, cooking, maybe laundry.
You absolutely cannot do that in a single 30-minute round trip.
Not even close.
Yeah.
So we're essentially setting policy based on this kind of single-trip fantasy. It ignores the scale of what's actually needed in the home.
Okay, so that brings up the quantity issue then.
Right.
If you do meet that 30-minute time limit, are you actually getting enough water to, live properly?
Often, no. That's the problem. There's the internationally ratified human right to water, the HRW, and it suggests people need 50 to 100 liters per person per day for basic domestic needs.
50 to 100 liters, okay.
But the JMP criteria, they just say the source needs to be within 1,000 meters and collection time under 30 minutes.
But no minimum quantity specified.
Critically, no. The JMP criteria do not specify the quantity needed for survival, let alone for, a dignified life.
So you could technically meet the JMP standard.
Tick the box.
And still be severely deprived of water for cooking, cleaning, basic hygiene.
Precisely. And even when those time and distance criteria are met, that label safe or improved, it's often just inaccurate in practice.
How so? Is it breaking down?
That's the third layer of failure, yeah. The research cited in our source suggests the JMP indicator dramatically underestimates the number of people using unsafe water by a massive amount.
How massive?
Somewhere between 750 million and 1.6 billion people.
Wow. Why such a huge gap?
Because sources that get labeled improved in the data collection, they often become contaminated locally. Poor maintenance, pipes leak, infrastructure just falls into disrepair.
So the water might be clean at the source, theoretically.
Right, but it's compromised before it ever reaches the person trying to use it.
Okay, so the core consequence of focusing so narrowly on just drinking water, it sounds like it dangerously overestimates global progress.
Yes, by counting things like broken pipes or contaminated wells as successes.
While totally neglecting the reality of the domestic sphere, all the washing, cooking, the daily household labor that needs reliable, substantial amounts of water.
Exactly. It paints a misleadingly rosy picture.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, we're moving beyond just thirst and disease. We're realizing water is really about power, economic stability, justice. So what does it mean for society if we start defining water as an issue of equity?
It means we define water equity as, well, a claim that how water is accessed, how it's allocated, should be subject to fundamental justice standards, both local norms and global ones.
Okay.
Water isn't just valuable for, say, preventing cholera. It's a fundamental prerequisite for creating a livelihood, for running a business, for maintaining a stable home.
So when it's allocated unfairly,
it creates systemic injustice, deep injustice.
And we know these inequities, they aren't just random, are they? They're often social political constructs rooted in history.
Absolutely. The source material is very clear on this. It highlights how historical patterns of segregation, often colonial and post-colonial practices, systematically excluded certain groups.
Like low-income areas.
Yeah.
Informal settlement.
Exactly. They were kept out of formal infrastructure planning. Think about rapidly growing cities like Nairobi or Dar es Salaam.
Right.
Formal planning focused services on the established, usually higher income districts. It often geographically separated and just excluded low-income residents. That legacy continues today.
So the deprivation isn't just, oh, we lack funding. It's the result of actual political decisions about who counts, who deserves to be on the grid, who gets included in the data.
Precisely. And the current JMP framework, you could argue, actually contributes to perpetuating this historical inequality.
How? By ignoring them.
By frequently ignoring or excluding these low-income or informal areas from data collection, often just because their water source gets categorized as unimproved.
So if it's unimproved, it doesn't count in the stats.
Right. The problem is essentially rendered statistically invisible to global policymakers. If you don't count them, they don't count in the global progress reports. It's a vicious cycle.
That invisibility.
Yeah, wow.
It suggests we need a totally different way of measuring things, something that goes beyond just counting pipes and wells and starts looking at human potential, which I guess brings us to the capabilities framework.
Yes, pioneered by the economist Amartya Sen.
Can you walk us through what that means, sort of in the context of water?
Sure. Sen's approach basically shifts the focus away from inputs like a pipe, a resource.
The improved source?
Right, and towards outputs, towards what people are actually able to do and be.
Freedoms and capabilities.
Exactly. The goal isn't just providing water, the substance. It's ensuring people have the capabilities and the freedoms that are only unlocked through reliable access to water.
So connecting water access directly to human flourishing, social power, economic opportunity.
All of the above. It's a much richer picture.
Okay, let's break down those capabilities then, because they seem crucial for getting this broader view on equity.
Yeah.
What specific capabilities does reliable water access actually enable?
Well, our sources sort of categorize this into three main areas, and they all depend on having sufficient, reliable water. Not just a trickle of drinking water.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, economic facilities. Reliable water access is like the engine for small-scale commerce, for livelihoods. Well, imagine someone running a small food stall, or maybe offering laundry services. If their water supply is unreliable or the cost is crazy high,
their business is crippled.
Right. Their ability to participate in trade, in production, is severely hampered. So, robust water access creates the economic freedom to start, run, and maintain a livelihood.
And we're not talking huge factories here. This is daily, street-level economic survival.
Precisely. That's the level it impacts most directly. Second area, social opportunities.
Okay.
And this might be the most profound impact, especially on education and health.
Right, the time spent collecting water.
Exactly. If a child, and let's be honest, it's usually a girl, spends 4 hours a day fetching water.
That's 4 hours not in school.
That's 4 hours she's not learning, not gaining skills. Reliable water access frees up those hours. It allows children to attend school, get an education, and that improves their long-term social mobility, their health outcomes. Water access becomes a direct enabler of education and public health.
So the lack of water acts almost like a time tax?
Fee tax, yes.
Levied mostly on the most vulnerable, and it directly hinders their social development.
Perfectly put. And the third area is protective security.
Protective security, what does that mean?
It means access to reliable water provides a fundamental social safety net. Think about a crisis, maybe a drought, a flood, even just a sharp economic downturn for a family.
Okay.
Reliable water lets them maintain basic sanitation, basic health standards. It helps prevent that crisis from spiraling into utter disaster. It's a core element of resilience, coping with extreme distress.
Wow. Okay, so when you look at water through that capabilities lens,
Yeah.
economic opportunity, social capacity, protective security, it becomes blindingly obvious why the simplified JMP view just isn't enough.
It really does.
The UN Human Right to Water, it's ratified globally, but it gets reduced to this shallow checklist when you only use JMP metrics.
Yeah, it ignores the deeper requirements, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That water access must be acceptable, affordable, accessible, and participatory.
Right. The system needs to measure dignity, not just distance to a tap.
Well said. Dignity and capability. So to maybe synthesize the core message here for you listening.
Yeah, let's boil it down.
Okay, first takeaway. Water equity isn't just about the quantity of drinking water. It absolutely must include the quality and the reliability of water for all essential uses.
So cooking, hygiene, livelihoods, security, all of it needs to be in the criteria.
All of it. That's point one. Second takeaway. Focusing so narrowly on improved water sources, it's dangerous. It can massively underestimate the true scale of water poverty and deprivation.
By making the problem statistically invisible, especially in those historically marginalized areas.
Exactly. Low-income urban areas, rural areas that just get overlooked. That's point two. And third takeaway, we have to understand water access holistically.
Through that lens of capabilities and freedoms.
Yes. Recognizing that access isn't just linked to preventing disease, vitally important as that is. It's fundamentally linked to human flourishing, to social power, and to real economic opportunity. #TagOutro.
That really is the foundation of water equity, isn't it? It's realizing that the invisible systems, the governance, the allocation, often shaped by history, are just as critical as the physical pipes and pumps. We really hope this deep dive gave you maybe a new perspective on the incredibly complex systems at work every single time you open the tap.
And our source suggests that moving forward, tackling these water inequities, it needs a really sophisticated approach, cross-disciplinary.
Connecting resource management directly to social justice.
Yeah, and making sure those outcomes are justifiable, morally and legally.
Which leaves us with a final kind of provocative question for you to think about. Yeah. If water is so clearly central to livelihoods, to health, to social stability,
Which it is.
right, then how should communities, how should nations redesign their governance structures?
Yeah,
How do we make sure water allocation is measured not just in liters of clean drinking water,
but in capabilities.
but in the capabilities and the genuine freedom it unlocks for everyone?
That's the big question moving forward.
We'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for diving deep with us.